people get to a level of body fat where they can't even have sex. How bad is it?
When I was younger, I was really skinny. As you can tell, I have quite a unique voice, so I was picked on a lot. I felt like a little boy around other men. So it kind of caused me to have a lot of problems mentally.
What were the darkest points?
I was going out 5 nights most weeks. I was drinking probably a litre of vodka every time I was going out.
That's 20 litres of vodka a month.
Sort of reinvent myself, not be this person who was scared to talk to people, not be this person who hid in the background. So I thought, I'll start going to the gym and I'll see how it goes. Me, I did it. I never thought I could. I never thought I'd be that person in shape. I never thought I'd be that person who's taking the top off at the beach. But I did.
What are some red flags for people when they're looking to hire a coach?
It's the first time ever, realistically, life expectancy is starting to come down and they're expecting people to die before their parents should be dying. The one thing with health and fitness which I love is you can't buy it. You've got to put in the work.
You could lose your position at work. Your financial situation could dramatically change. Your livelihood could be taken away from you. Nobody, for the love of money, can take that from you.
I want to be the type of coach I needed when I was at my worst.
So today we are joined by Robbie Binns. Now, for the people who don't know who you are a personal trainer, a brilliant one at that, I must say.
Thank you.
I've worked with you for a number of months now and kind of seeing your knowledge of the industry, how much passion you have on perfecting your craft and getting the most out of people, whether it's a body transformation, even mental help that you're giving people and kind of guiding them through a process is something that it's very rare you see in the fitness industry. You see a lot of people who go into a program, come out of a program, and they kind of leave the coach. You've been able to establish and build a business which has lasted the test of time. So I want to, first and foremost, what I want to do, Robbie, is get straight into your upbringing, because I believe, I said this to you before the podcast, I believe everybody gets into an industry for a certain reason, and a lot of them reasons they don't actually know. So I want to unpick that, because again, a lot of people are going to just say a personal trainer and think, right, okay, he's just a typical PT, but I know there's so much more to you. So what is your journey? Where you're from, and how did you become the PT you are?
So I am from Leeds, as you know. I travel down there all the time, and I grew up in a very rough area in Leeds, one of the probably roughest areas there is. But a lot of people exaggerate their childhood when they're in this situation because it sounds really good on a podcast. Did have problems in my childhood with bullying, which we can go into, but realistically I had really good parents, really strict, grounded parents. So most of my friends I went to school with have had trouble with the police or either arrested or not really doing anything with their life anymore. But I had really strict parents. But the reason why I got into sort of coaching and training is because when I was younger, I was really skinny. I had a physique which no one desires to have. I was tiny when I first started training. I was 9 stone at 20 odd years old. So I was always small as a kid growing up. As you can tell, I have quite a unique voice. So I was picked on a lot in terms of being the small, squeaky kid in the popular group of children at school. So it kind of caused me to have a lot of problems mentally as I was going through and becoming an adult, because I felt really unconfident. I struggled around alpha males. I didn't want to be around them. I kind of wanted to just sit in the background of everything and not have too much attention on myself, which is mental now that we're here with cameras and I video myself daily and put it on social media. But yeah, that then led me to follow the route of, I had strict parents who they didn't come from much. They sort of just worked and was typical working class family from a council estate, but they pushed my education, sometimes more than they probably should have done, and caused me to make decisions I probably didn't want to make. But I ended up going to university because that's basically the route they wanted me to take. And I got a couple of years into it, wasn't showing up because I was a bit depressed and had really bad anxiety about going. So I dropped out, and the simple reason I did that was because I'd started going to the gym when I first went to university. I saw it as a chance to sort of reinvent myself, not be this person who was scared to talk to people, not be this person who hid in the background. So I thought, I'll start going to the gym and I'll see how it goes. But I was really, really scared to go, like most people. So one of my friends was a lifeguard at a government building. It was government building. They had a public swimming pool, but a private gym for the people who worked in the offices. And I spoke to him about seeing if I could go in there because I knew it'd be quiet. And he was like, I'll speak to the gym management and we'll see if we can get you in. So I started going there because I was scared to turn up to a commercial gym. I was this really skinny guy, never lifted a weight in my life, and that's how I started my gym journey. And then from there, going to university, I found myself, I'd get on my bus to my lectures, and I was scared to turn up to lectures because I didn't really know anybody. So I just go to the gym instead. And that sort of started my fitness journey, because I was like, I just need to sort of build my physique because I know that'll help me demand respect. That'll give me a presence where maybe I won't be so scared to talk to people. And that's how it all started, pretty much.
You mentioned about having a squeaky voice, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I've dealt with different people from different walks of life who've had, all different types of adversity. I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
It's very, I appreciate the vulnerability, if you like, in telling us that. And it's something that you struggled with. When did you notice that was a problem for you at the time?
Probably when all the other lads in school started going through puberty, and I started puberty really late, so that probably didn't help. But then it was just a constant thing that would get said to me all the time. Oh, your balls haven't dropped yet. Like, are you really a man? All this sort of stuff. You sound like a girl. I'd get people commenting stuff all the time, and then it probably made more of a problem than I first thought, because when I first started doing this, I was so scared to talk on camera. I was so scared to talk anywhere because I was like, I don't want to attract attention to my voice because I've been bullied for it in the past and I didn't want to bring that attention. You know what social media can be like when you start posting stuff. And I get it now. Every time I post like a reel or a TikTok, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 will get a comment saying, oh, you sound like this person, or you might be big, but when you're going to sort your voice out and stuff like that. And I still get them comments now, really.
How would you have, I suppose when you're a kid or going through puberty and stuff and you're realising certain things about yourself or what you're getting picked on for, how did you actually combat that? Or was it a case of literally just kind of shriveling up and not speaking and kind of letting the bullies win, if you guess?
Well, I wouldn't say not speaking because I've always loved to talk, but I always struggled with a stutter as well and a bit of a lisp, and it probably will come out on this, but when people would mention it, it would always get worse. So if someone mentioned it, like at school, if someone would say one thing about my voice, for the rest of the day, I'd just be much quieter than I normally would be. And then I'd go home and I'd be like, why me? Why have I got this voice? I was Googling it. How do I get a deeper voice? How do I speed up to start puberty and all this sort of stuff? Obviously, there's no answers for that. It's just genetics. So I was like, what do I do? There's nothing I can really do about it. I've just got to deal with it. So that's when I started training. I started getting more respect from my friends. I was like, well, this is what I need to do to become the alpha male that I crave to be so much, because I was always seen as the little bitch in school. I was like, this is what I need to do. I just need to get bigger and stronger than everyone I'm around.
It's funny that because obviously, especially when you're growing up, kids find things to pull out of anybody. And, we all have a bit of banter in school and stuff, and we always try and, it's especially with, lad banter and stuff, no matter what, you could be the best looking guy, the most popular, the most talented, but you're still going to get the mick took out of you at some point. And honestly, mate, and I know that it deeply saddens us to think that, you would have been looking online to look at how you can deepen your voice at such a young age. Is it something you ever actually tried to seek help with? Or spoke to your parents about, or thought, I'm going to physically, I don't know, is there things that can be done for that? You alright, people? Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Here's a random one for you. Most of you who are actually watching this episode don't actually subscribe for it, so just do us a favour, will you? Can you click the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode, hit subscribe, all that good stuff, because we go up and down the country to try and bring you the best show possible. We're not messing around here, so please just show some love, will you?
Well, it's something I just don't really care about anymore, so I'm not bothered. I think that I've put myself in a position now where I've done loads of personal development stuff that I realise it's not really important. Why would I go out and change that? It doesn't really affect my life anymore. It caused me a lot of problems, but now I look back on them and I thank them, because with going to the gym, it meant that I dropped out of uni my second year because I wanted to become a personal trainer, because I'd noticed, and this is something which we'll probably touch on more, I noticed how it changed how I was being treated. It changed my mental health. My mental health was so bad that I would stay in bed till 2, 3 o'clock through the day. I'd get up and I had an obsession with going out because I would be able to drink while I was out or take drugs. And then it put me in a position where I felt confident, but it was just an ego. And that ego got a bit out of control when I drank, because it then meant I was horrible to people because of how I'd been treated before. And I kind of got a bit of a kick out of being that horrible person to people, because I could now sort of be in them bully shoes. And I mean, I look back at it now and I regret it. And I've messaged girls, I've messaged guys who I was horrible to when I was drunk and apologised, because people shouldn't be treated that way. But sometimes when you've had it done to you, it becomes normalised, and sometimes you do it because you get that feeling of, I'm not the bitch anymore, I'm the one who's quite powerful. Like when I first started going to the gym, I shut down on everybody who didn't, but it was more coming from a place of anger, and it's something I had to work on to change.
I think it's to be able to realise and have that awareness of that is such a powerful thing, because you can fully take control then. And that's probably why you did step in them shoes, to try and be that guy, because ultimately it's a case of you kind of really getting power back.
But one thing I try to explain to people is, it's not a case of one day you wake up and you realise that. I've spent thousands of pounds on business mentors who have then put me in contact with other people, and I've read books for hours. Like, I was tested for dyslexia in school because I was rubbish at English. I couldn't read or write. But now I spend hours and hours a week reading, and I've done that a lot to help with my personal development. And it's not a case of I woke up one day and realised this stuff doesn't matter and I want to help other people. That came through education. It doesn't just happen to people. You've got to work on everything. So being able to have that realization and being able to look at my life and explain how it's happening and have these conversations doesn't just happen to you. You have to work to be able to get to that position.
Well, that's kind of the overarching theme of this podcast. Like, we speak to anyone who's kind of overcome adversity in some way. And I, again, with you being a client of mine, and I've filmed your content, and you know, a lot of the content that we create when we're in that gym, you are very almost bulletproof mindset with a lot of the things you come out with. But I guess in order to develop that mindset, you've got to have been through adversity. And that's clearly what you've faced. And I mean, up until this point, I never knew that you were bullied for X, Y, and Z. So it's given me a real sense of, right, that's why he's like this then. Yeah. Because I don't think many people just wake up and have that thing where they just, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think many people have that. Like, have you ever seen a Rocky film where you just watch the film and you want to just get off the couch and go for it?
Yeah.
Not many people are born with that thing in them. There's often what you'll find is, I mean, I've spoke to athletes, boxers, celebrities, and a lot of these people who are successful or uber rich or wealthy or whatever it is, and they're successful in their own right, a lot of them have faced some demons when they were young. You notice that. And it's really interesting because, and again, this is why I want to get you on, Robbie, because a lot of people are going to see the title of this video or just see the thumbnail of this video. It's just another PT. Well, no, this is a guy who's actively, took it upon himself to better himself, which has then equipped you to better others. And that's what, this is not me trying to plug your service. This is, if you're looking for a coach, and if you are, it doesn't have to be Robbie Binns. It doesn't have to be, but what it can be is, it needs to be someone who's been through the trenches themselves, because they're going to get the most out of you. How much of that is something that you implement into your game now? Because I'm surely that you will see, a lot of your clients will have faced adversity and vulnerabilities, and is that what gets them in the gym to start with?
So, yeah, I mean, I've spoken about some of this stuff on social media, and that's what gets people to reach out. And then my business has grown mainly through referrals. So I get clients come in, and then they get to know me and get to understand me, and I get to know them and understand them, and I invest a lot into their journey. I mean, most coaches see a turnover of clients every 2 to 3 months. A client comes in, they want a transformation, they do the work, they get it, and a lot of the time they go. I would say a lot of my clients have been with me over a year now, and the reason for that is because they buy into my journey. I'm always trying to get better. I've got an obsession with getting better, and I think that that's something that the fitness industry misses. A lot of people do their level 3 personal training course, which is an absolute joke of a course anyway, and then they think, right, I've done it. Let's sit back and let's go and train people, right? Let's train people in a gym. Let's move to an online coach straight away because there's people earning loads of money in there. And they stop learning. And I always say to my clients, there's more to learn. There's always more to learn. And if you want to get better and you want to improve your mindset as well as your health and fitness, you need to work on that as well. You need to work on that as much as you do. So I do calls with my clients all the time, and we go over sort of mindset stuff that I've learned in the past to help them deal with things which are going on in their own life. That's why I stay.
So for someone listening or watching this, Robbie, then, who is the type of person who needs a personal trainer?
Anyone who wants to get into fitness, who can afford a personal trainer. It's a luxury. We're expensive, but we're expensive because we get results, and the people who are expensive have gone out and spent a lot of money on education. So the problem is that everybody, in my opinion, should have access to being healthy and fit. But I can't just coach everybody for free. So I have to charge a premium for that, for my services, for my time, and for me to be able to afford to go and do further courses. So I think everybody who can afford a personal trainer should. Everybody who can't afford a personal trainer should reach out, explain their situation, and just get as much help as possible from somebody who's educated in it.
And if there is someone who is not in the position ability-wise, how do they kind of better themselves? What do they do?
Do you mean from a financial standpoint?
No, as in, say they haven't got the mobility, they physically can't walk, they maybe have a disability or something like that. What can they do?
So there is going to be specialists in that field, but what you've got to remember is we're all born with limitations. And one thing I'm really passionate about is not focusing on how unfair life is and not wanting what everybody else has. There's some limitations that we have which we cannot get around. It's just the cards that we're dealt, and we have to accept them. Like, if you're somebody who has a problem with mobility, can't walk, unfortunately there's not much somebody can do to get you to walk in most situations like that. But there is going to be specialists out there who can help you get to the best that you can. And the way I try to explain this to everybody about genetics with getting in shape or people trying to climb up the ladder to get richer and more successful is everybody has a glass ceiling. What you have to do is try and reach yours. And it's not fair, but it's just the reality of life.
How does somebody know when they're reaching their glass ceiling?
You don't. You've just got to keep progressing and keep progressing and keep progressing, because I think that there is a glass ceiling, but I think no one will ever reach theirs because there's always 1% you could do better yesterday. But you've just got to keep every day, wake up, right, what can I do today to improve this situation? A lot of the people I deal with are people who have done really well in life in terms of what we would see as natural success. Most of my clients are managers of teams or they own their own businesses. But the one thing with health and fitness, which I love, is you can't buy it. You've got to put in the work. I have literally trained multi-millionaire clients who own some of the biggest businesses in this country, and they come to me and they still go on holiday, they get in a pool, they keep the top on. They've got all the success. Why do they give a fuck what people think? But it's because health and fitness is just something that you can't buy. Yes, it's easier if you have money because you can pay somebody like me to help you get it, but you've still got to put in the work. You can't just buy, like you can't go online, click it, right, I've got abs now. It doesn't work like that.
And this is the beauty about health and fitness. This is the element that I love. It's something that nobody can take from you as well.
Yeah.
So if you've just got a local gym membership and you're chipping away in that gym, building the physique of your dreams or just improving your physique, nobody for the love of money can take that from you. Yeah. Whereas a position at work, you can lose your position at work. Your financial situation could dramatically change. Your livelihood could be taken away from you. But when you're in that gym, nobody can stop you developing better traps, better abs. Do you know what I mean? Like it's on you.
Well, once you've done it, it's a superpower. So we've spoke a lot about business before, right? You're going to have good months, you're going to have bad months. In the bad months, when you're a business owner, it could be the case that you think, I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage next month, right? And I can't afford to pay my bills, and you start to feel down. And then the one thing I think about is, but I'm really healthy. I've spent a lot of time on personal development, so I'm in a real privileged position because there's so many people who would give near enough everything to have what I have just in that. So that's worth its weight in gold. I can always fix the money side. That can always come. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they was talking about a situation where if Warren Buffett said to you, we will swap lives, would you do it? He is worth $150 billion. He is one of the best investors that we've ever seen. But right now, would you do it? Well, no, because he's in his 90s and he's going to die within a couple of years. But he'd swap with you. He'd swap with anyone who's sort of in their 20s and 30s and has the opportunity of health for the next 40, 50 years. But people in this country just decide that it's not something that they want to invest in. It's not something that they want to do. And it's because we've made it socially acceptable by having a body positivity sort of movement where it's gone too far. Like, yes, people shouldn't think that they have to be shredded on social media, but people should have a personal standard that they want to walk around at, and that shouldn't be to the point where you're pushing yourself to type 2 diabetes. That shouldn't be to the point where you're rushing yourself into a heart attack. I saw an article this morning from the Times, and it was saying it's the first time ever, realistically, that their actually life expectancy is starting to come down, and they're expecting people to die before their parents should be dying. So say if your parents' life expectancy is 85, people now, generations below, are becoming lower down, and we've got 20 years more medical science, and it's generally down to obesity. There's a whole article about that, but people just take that for granted.
It's absolutely phenomenal, that, like, it's mind-blowing, isn't it, to
Like,
think.
imagine,
it's almost like the human race is regressing.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens with technology, right? If we don't work on something with technology, technology actually regresses because people stop working on it, and the people who worked on it, they end up dying. So then we're left with stuff which the people who are alive don't understand, so then that certain part of technology regresses.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
And we're doing that right now. So we're not focusing on education around nutrition, around training, and we're basically letting people going to get to a point where they're living subpar lives. I always say this to my clients, right? You invest in me by giving me money to invest in your life right now. But if a client pays me £6,000, which is a lot of money, they'd be with me for quite a while to do that, yeah? But when they then get into their 70s, they're not like a 70-year-old because they understand resistance training. We know that if you resistance train throughout life, you dramatically decrease your chance of Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, and just general wear and tear of the body, right? So in 40, 50 years' time, when you're in your 70s and 80s and you're able to get up off your chair and see your grandkids be born and still play with them, are you going to be thinking, do you know what, that £6,000 30 years ago to invest in a coach to teach me how to do this wasn't worth it? No. It's like worth its weight in gold if you can do it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think if there was a pill that someone could take to switch their bodies, and if it was worth 10 grand, they'd pay it straight away.
That's it. Everyone wants it quick, right? So we've got things like Ozempic and stuff like that coming out now, and I have a very mixed opinion on it. I think it's a risk versus reward drug. All the research I've done, you know that I'm somebody who's obsessed with the science. All the research that I've done onto it is there's loads of downsides, but for people who might be ridiculously overweight and starting to get to the point where they're getting diabetes, it might be worth taking them risks for them. But the amount of people who now it's becoming sort of more accessible to everyone who takes it because they want to go to IB for shredded, mental. But it's because everyone just wants the fast track. But realistically, anybody who's successful in anything that they've done will always tell you there's not a fast track way. You'll get the odd outlier who gets really lucky with certain things. So you might have an outlier in health and fitness who's just got ridiculous genetics, doesn't do much and is in shape, right? But most people who are in shape, most people who are rich, most people who are successful in any area of life, even parents, right? So being a good parent is you're successful at parenting, right? You've got to have worked on that. It's hard work. Nothing just comes to most people easily. And that's the problem. We have people who say, I'm not a gym person, so I just don't go to the gym. What do you mean you're not a gym person? It should be the same as brushing your teeth. Would you go to bed at the end of the day and think, do you know what? I can't be bothered brushing my teeth today, so I'm not going to do it.
But it's where priorities lie for people, isn't it? So, and I agree, because I'm from that ilk as well. I think nothing's achieved without hard work. I feel like there shouldn't be any fast tracks to anything. But what I would say is, to counter that, to almost contradict myself, is there anything wrong with wanting a shortcut?
No, there's nothing wrong with it, but they come with downsides.
Because if you look at,
they're never 100% a golden bullet.
If you look at entrepreneurship, though, in what you'll find is, and again, I'm the master of butchering quotes, but I'm pretty sure there's something out there. I'm looking at the end, they're laughing at us, but there's something out there that says all entrepreneurs are effectively just lazy people. They just want the quickest way of doing something. So they'll develop a formula to get there the quickest. It's not that they're trying to come up with this massive operation. They just can't be bothered to do the graft to a point where they think, right, actually, can I just provide a service that'll just do that? So they either create the service or they trade time for money to make that service. So what you'll find is the hustle of an entrepreneur is the putting the work in, but ultimately it is, like for me, for instance, right, the content PT business, all I do effectively is compliment people like yourself. You have a business to run. I know you need social media to keep that going, keep that active. So instead of you putting the work in, I'll just do it for you. So is that you being lazy by hiring someone like me or not? Because I believe you don't actually need a coach. That's what I believe. Contrary to this conversation, I've never had a coach, and I lost 9 stone. And I kept myself in shape for years.
Yeah.
And I kind of know what to kind of do. And I've never had a coach before, but I've got it in us to think I'm going to show up at the gym every day. I'm going to get my hour of work in the gym, and that's a non-negotiable. I don't know where that comes from, but no coach has ever told me that.
So where did you learn to train?
Went into a gym and picked up a few weights and then hurt myself. After a couple of months, I thought, I'll do less of that and do more of that.
Yeah.
And I just kept that going. And then I started to see over time, bloody hell, that looks a bit different. My shoulders look a bit different now. And I just loved that. Didn't know where I was going. Didn't have a goal, no plan. Just went for it.
So a lot of my clients don't have that time to waste. And what you've got to think about is everybody's different, but the majority of people, if they don't see results quick, quit. right? So when I take a client on, my first thing is I've got to get them, whatever their goal is, I've got to get them some short result straight away. Because if not, psychologically, they will quit, right? This is my problem with the fitness industry. Because there's so many shit coaches, I think it's diabolical because we have a problem with obesity and people being out of shape in this country, right? And then that's affecting the mental health problems in the country. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that somebody can, and I was one of these coaches, I was a shit coach. Everyone's got to start somewhere, right? But I think that it's mental that we don't have a board of sort of saying where people stand with it. Because to anybody who's general population is a word I don't really like to use, but anybody who's not a gym goer goes into a gym and gets a personal trainer, they've hired a professional, but this professional might have just started and doesn't have a clue how to get results. And then because they don't get that person a result, that person says, well, I've hired a professional and it still doesn't work, so I'm just destined to be overweight and out of shape, right? A lot of people don't have time to go in and trial and error, and you have a mindset where you've built this, right? You have a mindset where you don't really quit when you want to do something. But if you'd have hired a coach, it would have just fast-tracked you along that line, and you might know more. Well, you would know more now, right? And you'd have learnt more, and you'd have got them results quicker. You'd have got it without sort of injuring yourself and without wasting a lot of time in the gym. The way I try to explain it to people is you don't need a coach to get in shape. If you don't have a coach, you need to do what I did. I didn't have a coach to start with. But I spent 4 or 5 hours a day just on YouTube and researching and reading because I wanted to know everything about it. And when I first started training, that became my obsession. But you've got to have time to learn. Like the gym, when we do have conversations and you say, like, I don't understand how you're so educated in this and a lot of the things you talk about a lot of stuff which other coaches don't talk about. And it's because loads more can go into it. So why not optimize your time? Like for me, who trains a lot of busy professionals and people who have really busy lives, they don't want to be wasting loads of time in the gym and not getting results. They want to come in, know exactly what they're doing is going to get that result. So that's where a coach is really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if I hired a coach now, even the knowledge that I do have, I would come on leaps and bounds by working with a coach. I do get that now, but I feel like even hiring a coach, it's still you doing the work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you've still got to have that dog in you almost to show up every day, because I can pay all the money in the world to the best coach in the world. It doesn't mean I'm going to get the shape that I want.
See, this is where I kind of disagree. So I hear a lot of lazy coaches say, well, if you get somebody in and they just don't want to do it, then it's their fault, which most of the time it is, right? But I've had really good business mentors. I've had some of the best in the industry. And I remember the first one that I went to, the first one I truly invested in, said to me, you're not always going to get every client in shape, because you are going to get some who pay you because they think paying you is a shortcut, they don't have to do the work, right? But if you're getting less than 7, 8 out of 10 of your clients a result who step through the door, you need to look at what you're doing wrong. So where you say people need to have that want to do it, right? This is where coaches need to learn psychology and they need to study human psychology, because there's things that we can do to get people going. So a few tips that I do with clients straight away is straight away when I have a call with them before they pay me any penny, I tell them, this is going to be hard work. You do realise that, right? Because then you're putting it into them straight away that they've got to do the work. Like I know a lot of coaches who will bring people on board and say, oh, I can get you in shape without doing cardio, you don't have to change your food, you don't have to do this, because they want the money off them. I will tell them straight up, you're coming to me because you want a life-changing result. For a life-changing result takes work. And then there's loads of things that you can do from a human psychology standpoint to keep them going. Number one, what I've just mentioned, get them a result straight away. If you come to me and you're a client who wants to lose fat, or you want to lose weight, and you've lost weight before in the past and then gained it back on, or you've really struggled to lose weight, and I get you in and you lose a couple of pounds in your first couple of weeks, and then I explain to you the process that if we keep dieting for a long time, that big thing, calorie deficit, is going to come up. But you're going to have metabolic adaptations. So after 12 weeks, you could be eating the exact same food, doing the same amount of output, but you'll stop losing weight. And this then explains to them how I'm going to combat that in 8 to 12 weeks. You then start to get people to buy into you because they know that you understand what you're talking about. And then when they see results, so you can get somebody in who's tried it before and then being the typical person who's dropped out. Most coaches would say they just don't want it enough. But it's not you. You as a coach have to give them the tools to mentally get in that mindset to do it. And that's where it's different.
So do you think a good coach needs a good body?
Yes and no. So,
because I've heard of a phrase, and it's never trust fat motivational speaker.
Yeah and no. So it's an hard one to answer, right? Because like I could go through something in life and get out of shape for a short period of time, right? Does that then automatically, because I've got out of shape, mean that now I'm a shit coach, but I wasn't 6 months ago, right? But I think you've got to walk the walk. So I had a client today in their check-in say, thank you for being so motivating. I posted on my Instagram. And thank you for leading by example. So some of my clients at the moment are trying to lose weight. I'm trying to gain weight again, right? So we're not doing the same things. But what they're seeing from me is me committing to my health and fitness, committing to my goals. So you've got to show to them that you can do this as well. That's why when I've done photo shoots with clients in the past, I've done it as well, because I'm going to prove to them, I'm not just saying things I've learned from a textbook, I'm going to teach you so I know the emotions that you're going through while you're doing this. Because sometimes to do a photo shoot, there's a lot more than just calories in, calories out and do this exercise. Like there's a lot of stuff from a mental standpoint, which you're not going to know. So you've got to know how to get in shape yourself. The problem where we lie here is I know a lot of coaches in really good shape who aren't great, and then I know a lot of great coaches who can't get in that shape, and sometimes that does just come down to genetics and how they've got into it.
But how can a great coach not get in shape?
Because, so for example, when I worked at a pure gym, the most out of shape coach at that point was the most educated coach in the gym. They just didn't want to do it themselves.
I get that, but I don't believe there's room for that.
Might be why they might be still there.
Because I just believe, and I get it, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but I think application's a big part of it. And if you can't do that to yourself, there's got to be something. Like, how can you teach someone to go into them trenches? And when I lost that weight, right, I remember, and I did it clueless, poverty calories, dropped my calories low, shitload of running, shitload of weights, just did everything I could to physically drop the weight, calorie deficit, right? Got to a point where I hit a plateau, couldn't really lose anymore. And then just started trying to build muscle, put my food back up, and got to a point where I was happy. But I kind of had to educate myself using YouTube, everything I could in my power, looking at my favourite followers, favourite influencers, people online, and trying to take little bits and bobs. That's the way I'm wired, so I get it. It's not going to work for everyone. However, how does it work if someone can't apply that to themselves? I know when I was losing that weight, right, I remember feeling hungry, and I was hungry, right? That's something that you've got to just get through. If a coach has never felt like that, how can he physically guide you or mentally guide you through them times? Because it's going to be fucking tough.
No, I agree, but I think there is special occasions where that might not occur, right? So, for example, if you're a boxing coach, do you have to have been a world champion boxer to coach a world champion?
No, you don't, but you truly don't know what it's like to have that win or to try and fight for that world title or to be under that pressure. You don't?
Yeah, I agree, but there is just these, I genuinely think to be a coach, if you believe that being in shape is so important that you're going to sell it to people, you should walk that walk, and I agree with that. I just think there is some cases where it can go the other way and people can be slightly out of shape, but I genuinely think that nobody should be out of shape. There's not really much reason for it, so yeah, I agree.
No, and again, like to sort of back to what you said, I mean, you can definitely coach boxing and you can definitely achieve great things for your clients if you've not won a world title before, but ultimately, regardless who it is, and I would say this to any coach in the world, regardless of their level or their prestige, if they've not done it, they truly will never know what it feels like to be under that light.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Yeah. The
ability, the skill set, the mindset, I totally get. But on that night, when the world title fight is on them, they will just not know how their client feels, ultimately. And I think that is vital. Boxing is maybe a bit of a different type of industry, but I think with losing weight and, basic things like feeling hungry at night and swapping out certain things for certain foods and not feeling that, I mean, people get to a level of body fat where they can't even have sex.
Yep.
That's a true. I mean, you probably experience it. So there you go. So if someone, and in fact, while we're on this, let's talk a little bit about that, because I was speaking to someone just before this, and they're not from the world of bodybuilding, and I was like, listen, when people get to this level of body fat, their dick doesn't work, basically, and it got to the point where they just didn't understand.
Yeah.
How bad is it when you're that lean?
If you don't know by now, I run a business called The Content PT. I create content for influencers, PTs, online coaches and fitness brands all around the world. So if you are someone who's in need for sexy content for your social media, or you really want to maintain a competitive edge in your industry, drop me a DM on Instagram.
So I can explain this well because I understand what's going on, because I've done a lot of research in hormones and things like that. So basically what's happening is your body's going into a mode where it doesn't want to do anything but feed your organs, right? And I want to put this out there. Doing a photo shoot and going to that level of body fat or doing a bodybuilding show is not healthy, right? If you get to the point where your dick can't get hard, you're in a bad place health-wise, but there's reasons why people do it. And the reason for that is because your body gets to the point where it's getting such low body fat that it's changing hormones all the time, right? So it will increase hormones to make you feel hungrier. It will decrease hormone releases of a hormone called leptin, which is secreted by body fat. Basically what that does is when you're eating and the fats and glucose from your blood are going into your fat cells will say, we're full, and it'll release leptin, and your brain will say, right, we're full, and it tells your stomach, and that's when you start to get that full feeling. That goes, right, because it's just wanting to get more and more food in. So because you're restricting food so low and you're training so hard, it decreases testosterone, it decreases everything which it doesn't see as a vital point of survival now, right? So anything which it sees as a luxury, like reproduction or anything like that, it just stops doing it. So you know, 'cause you've worked now with some of the best bodybuilders in the industry, and they'll tell you the same, like, you don't really feel anything because your body's just thinking of survival. And I've not been extremely shredded, like show shredded, but I've been close enough to the point where, yes, like, you could see the fittest woman walk past you completely naked and you just don't even flinch.
How did your partner take to that when you were going through that?
Fine, because she understands me and she understands that what I'm doing is so important to me. We've had conversations. She's very career driven before. We have a very weird relationship in terms of we're very honest with each other, and she understands that, one, it's a short term thing. Two, it's for my goals because it helps push my business, because unfortunately in the fitness industry, image sells. So if you're shredded and you can put photos up that you've done it, people want to buy into that, right? So we sit down, just have open and honest conversations. I said to her, this is what's going to happen for this short period of time. This is why, this is how it's going to go. And we just have like a little sit down and talk about it. And then she says, fine, like, I'll support you. And let's deal with it and let's do it together. Like, she's done a photo shoot with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that happen with females as well?
Well, yeah, because everyone just goes into this, their body just goes into this survival mode where, like, females naturally have a lot less lower testosterone than men, but then it decreases right down to virtually nothing. And with females, it gets even worse because it can start to affect their menstrual cycle. Females will stop having periods. It can really crash their sex hormones, and it can cause effects which are problematic later down the line, which is a real issue for people wanting to get that lean.
How much do you know about assisted athletes?
Quite a bit, but as you said about the boxing thing and the experience thing, because I've not done it to any extent, like, not that much, but I know enough.
So without mentioning what we're talking about, I'm trying to keep it assisted so I don't have to say the S word, but with assisted athletes or people who are assisted, how many people in average gyms do you think are doing that?
Well, it depends what gym you go to.
So but I know it's a bit of a
in
wishy-washy
like a
question,
commercial gym.
But do you think more people are assisted than not?
So in a commercial gym, no. If you start going to bodybuilding gyms, yes. And what I would say on it is way more people are assisted than most people would know out of the fitness industry. Like, I know a lot of people who are assisted who, not to sound a bit of a twat, but who aren't in good shape still, because you still need to put in the work. A lot of people go on stuff without really knowing what they're doing, without doing any education into it. It can destroy a lot of things. But there's a lot of safe ways that you can do it as well, which we all know of. There's loads of stuff out there, but pretty much most movie stars that you see on TV, they're all on something.
Have you ever considered it?
So I've taken things in the past. I did something called, which is a selective androgen receptor modulator, which at the time people thought had very little side effects. They thought it gave you all the same results with none of the side effects. And then I did it for 6 weeks, felt absolutely horrible, came off it. There is things which I take now called, which I'm more than happy to
Are they legal,
talk about.
Is that or something?
So I take one called, the reason why I took it wasn't anything to do with bodybuilding. And I don't really want to promote these sorts of stuff because when you get it, you buy it. I buy it off the internet, and it does say it's like a sort of lab experiment. But I took it because from listening to a podcast about Andrew Huberman, basically what it does is it basically tells your gland to create more of that hormone. It affects growth hormone, it affects your pituitary gland. And what it is imagine your brain sends a messenger signal to your gland to create more of that hormone. What they've done with is they've created that message. So it's a chain of amino acids, right? So you inject it and it tells your gland to create more of that hormone. I took it because growth hormone has been proven to be really good for sort of anti-aging, skin health, heart health, lung health, better recovery, better sleep. So it overall improves your health. The problem is it's growth hormone, it makes everything grow more. So if I got, for example, a tumour, a cancerous tumour, it would grow faster because I've got it in. But because it's and it's telling the gland to create more, the gland's creating it itself, right? So if I stopped taking it, say I went on holiday and I couldn't take it, nothing would happen. My gland would go back to creating the same amount. Or that's what science is showing at this moment
previously.
in time. Yeah, that's what science is showing at this moment in time. When we go to the S word and you start adding hormones in which are made in a lab and you're adding the hormone in and your body's not creating it, as far as what I know about it and the knowledge I have on it is that's why it suppresses your body creating that hormone, because your brain has a loop, right? So imagine that you're taking, for example, your brain has a loop, and this is how I had it explained to me once. Comes from your gonads up to your brain, it's a loop. Your brain will dab into it. Imagine it's like a little science thing, and it dabs in and it says, do you know what, there's not enough testosterone here. It'd send a signal back to your gonads to create more testosterone. When you're injecting it, your brain's always getting the signal that it's present, so it would always tell you not to create it, and then you stop creating it, and it reduces how much you create. So when you stop taking it by injecting it, what happens is you're still at the point where you're not creating it, your brain doesn't pick that back up because the work rate that your gonads can then do has just decreased.
So effectively you're shutting down your own
But from a health standpoint, as you get older as a male, is it important? Should most people take it? I genuinely believe yes. As long as you do it with a lot of blood work and it's hormone replacement and you're replacing the hormones that you had in your 20s, there's so many health benefits to doing that. The problem is that since TRT has become a thing, which is testosterone replacement therapy, and you're replacing that hormone, there's a lot of people who claim they're on TRT but take doses which are way out of normal range, so then it's no longer TRT anymore. And then what they're doing is they're going on social media and saying, I have this physique, I take TRT only, so I'm in normal ranges, and they're just not. And then guys who are in them normal ranges already and don't need to take anything, like, well, why can't I get there? Well, it's because they're enhanced. But
so effectively they're claiming they're natty when they're not.
Yeah, but there's a big problem around it because I think that in general population areas, it's seen as this thing that you take it and you just die. Right, like a lot. My parents have always been like, "Don't be taking." A blanket statement for so many drugs. Some are not that bad for you, and if you do it really carefully and you replace that hormone that your body's now not making as much of naturally, can be really good for your health. But if then you abuse it, like anything else, it can be really bad for your health.
I want to ask you, Robbie, about mindfulness, meditation, ice baths, cold plunges, red light therapy, hyperbaric chambers. Do you know much about these things?
Quite a bit, but just to touch on that last point, I'm not an expert in hormones. This is just all I know to the best of my ability at the moment.
You sound like one. But
there's going to be people in the comments saying, this guy don't have a clue what he's talking about, and you could be right, I've just done a lot of research on this stuff.
So you see on social media a lot of fitness guys, business owners, coaches, influencers, if you like, and they preach this daily journaling, ice bath, cold plunge, all this stuff. Do you believe there's a lot of truth in that, or do you think it's just a bit wishy-washy?
If it works for you, good, but it's one of them, right? So if your perfect morning routine takes you an hour and a half to do, and then you're complaining that you don't have time, well, what are you doing in that perfect morning routine? How beneficial is it? Are you searching for the minor percentages and then making it mean that you can't do the big things? So for me, when you're looking at this sort of stuff, it's a fad, right? And fads which get people into health and fitness, get people fit, I'm all for, because sometimes you need that to get into that realm and learn more stuff. But if it's taking up all your time and you're really focusing on the minor percentages, but then your sleep's still shit and your nutrition's completely off, and you're not training properly, but you feel good because you're getting an ice bath every morning and you think that's going to do the job, like that's nothing. And there is science out there. I mean, there's a lot of arguments about this. There is science out there that if you train and then you get an ice bath straight afterwards and your goal is muscle growth, it will slow that down because of the way that it affects with inflammatory responses and affects the recovery process, and it actually decreases recovery. But that is so minuscule. The effect that has on your recovery is it probably isn't going to affect most people. If you wanted the best advice on what to do is probably, if you're going to use an ice bath, use it in the morning, not after your session. But it's tiny percentages. Even on the downside to it, it's like a tiny percentage. If you're still going to the gym training really hard and then you get an ice bath, you're not going to have destroyed all of them gains you've made in that session, right? It's just minor percentages. And if you feel good after getting an ice bath, do it. I always say to people, right, even if something that you do improves your habits, but it's all a placebo effect, and the placebo effect is enough.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same as, there's an argument with paracetamol and things like that. Like, is it just placebo? Is it actually working? Look, listen, if it works for you and it helps you regardless, I would say just keep doing it. And I think this is the thing, like, especially with business and fitness and the fitness industry, like, in itself, it's not really an exact science, how things are done and how things are built. So I get with the human body, the anatomy, it is. Yep. But in terms of building business and social media and what people are telling you to do, it doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. I've did things in the most unorthodox way, if you like. Yeah. Is that the word? So, for instance, I haven't traditionally built a business how a normal person would say, this is the blueprint, build a business. I've effectively just blagged it all the way through, and that's me being totally transparent. Like, I've picked up a camera since I was 19 and just grafted my arse off to build a network. A lot of people want to build networks in like online and things like that, but I believe it's in real life. This is why I'm so passionate about a podcast, because I get to sit with you, look in the whites of your eyes, phones down, and have a conversation. Everyone's sending DMs, but this is where the real rapport is built, in my opinion. So because of that, what is your thoughts on, for personal trainers out there, because you're an online coach, you've got an online business, you do in-person PT as well. What do you think the keys are to building a business as successful as yours?
Work to your strengths. So you've just mentioned the in-person thing, right? We've spoken about this because we met through a networking group and we connected straight away. You have a real strength of connecting with people and getting them to talk about certain things and building a really good rapport with people. Some people are shit at that, so don't do it, right? But number one thing for coaching is be a good coach. Always remember, I've worked with two of the best business mentors in the industry, right?
Who were they?
Matt Coles and Phil Graham. Phil Graham was the first one, and when I first left Phil Graham, I genuinely thought he was bad. But when I look back at it, I just wasn't a good enough coach at the time to take everything that he said. And I've spoken to him afterwards, spoken to members of his team afterwards, and he's absolutely brilliant at what he did. I just wasn't a good enough coach because I'd not done any education. I was your typical coach who was working in a pure gym, just done my PT qualification, that was it. And something that he said to me, which didn't stand out then, but it has since I've done more education on this, was, if you're a shit coach, don't get good at marketing, because all you're going to market is how shit you are as a coach, right? And when he first said that to me, I was like, I just need more leads, because that's what everyone thinks, I just need more leads. And then afterwards I was like, well, yeah, I'm posting all this time and I'm not posting results, or if I am, you need to get a magnifying glass out to see what's the difference between before and after. So what I need to do is become better at a coach. And then I was working at Pure Gym. I worked with Phil Graham for a bit when COVID happened, and then I moved gym that I was training myself at to a more bodybuilding focused gym with a guy who's really well known around Leeds who owns it, and he asked me if I wanted to move down there. And then I moved down there and I met a PT called Jerome, and he's like ex-army, but he was really educated. I remember talking to him thinking, I thought I knew a lot about training. I thought I know nothing, and it's something called a Dunning-Kruger effect, and a lot of coaches go through this. Everyone goes through it, right? Have you ever heard of what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? No. So it's basically, you learn a little bit about a topic and you think you're an expert. Then you learn a little bit more and you realise you know nothing. And then it takes you 10 years of learning that to become that expert that you thought you were.
It's like the pie chart, isn't it? Like what you know, then what you know you don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's like what you think you know, and then what you don't know, you don't know.
So
and then it's like a massive disproportionate.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect starts out on a graph where you know nothing. You learn a tiny little bit and you think you're an expert, you think you're up here. And then you learn a little bit more and you realise, shit, I know absolutely nothing. And then, it takes 10 years of studying it. So I'm not an expert at all. Like I see people put in their bio, they've been coaches for 2 years and they'll put expert, like fat loss expert. And I'm like, how can you be an expert in 2 years? To be a good coach, what you have to do is study so many different areas of science, which it takes people a lifetime to be an expert in that one area. So you need to understand anatomy. You need to understand physics and how these forces are applying to anatomy. You need to understand nutrition, and you need to understand human psychology. So you're never, ever going to be able to be an expert coach, ever. No one, there's not enough time in the world unless we create medical science where we're living up until 200 years old. Because each one of them, it takes people a lifetime to become an expert in each one, just focusing on one of them. So as a coach, you have to look at all four, look which are the worst at that moment in time, and get better at that one. And then that one will leapfrog to the top because you've just done education on it, and then find the one at the bottom, work on that one again, and keep doing that over and over again if you want to get a good business, because people will find you out. There's a lot of people going straight into online coaching and they can't get results. They're really good at marketing, so they get clients in, don't keep them. They never post results on their Instagram, or they might have one or two because, look, if you know the basic principles to get somebody in shape, you'll get the odd client to come in if you get enough people in who will smash it, right? And you don't really need to know how to change people's psychology or really that much about nutrition. You can get the odd result, but they'll never have consistent results churning out, and then they wonder why their business starts to fail after that initial influx, and it's because people aren't getting results to you, so then they're getting a little bit of a result, but then they go to somebody better.
See, but this kind of shows your character though, Robbie, because harking back to the story you mentioned about always wanting to be better, always trying to improve, and the adversity that you'd faced at the start. And the reason why I want to point that out again is because you worked in a pure gym, yet you were seeking out Phil Graham. That's pretty advanced shit for the stage you were at. So it just shows how well you wanted to do at such an early... who's doing that?
So that was because of COVID, right? COVID was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. In terms of, it was one of the worst times of my life. I got really depressed. Luckily, I was still living at home. When I first became a coach, like most coach, I was just running classes and I was doing the odd PT session. And then in the January when COVID happened, I started to take my business a bit more serious. I hired my first mentor, but it was just like a local guy who was teaching people how to get clients in the gym. And then I remember I was earning around £1,000 a month before I hired him, and I paid him £600 for this 12-week course to learn how to pick clients up off the gym floor. And I managed to get, in the February, I earned $2,500. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I've cracked it. I've cracked business. I'm going to be all right, because £2,500 from somewhere where I came from per month seems like a lot of money. And then COVID happened, and that mentor taught me how to get clients in the gym. All gyms closed. So I'd gone from being right at this top where I thought, right, I've cracked it now, I can just keep adding clients on, to how do I train these people? Then people started leaving. Then I was getting to the point during COVID where it was like I was losing more and more clients because I had no way of coaching them. I mean, we all tried to shift online and try to do it, but we're charging people a lot of money and they're not getting results. I was having clients in the living room, shoulder pressing tins of beans and stuff like that. It's not going to work, right? So then we had that whole thing where gyms was opening, closing. I just sat there and I was like, I need to learn how to build a business which doesn't rely on anybody else. So I can't rely on a gym being open. I need to know how to coach clients online. So I just spent every penny that I had in my savings to go work with them guys to learn how to build an online business.
Well, he's a little tip for anyone, he's a little bit of business advice for anybody. For anybody who's watching. So, when you mentioned about there's no such thing as an expert coach.
Yeah.
What I will say is, it may be just the perfect opportunity for someone listening or watching this. If you are a personal trainer, an online coach, a videographer, it doesn't matter what you are. You may just have to reposition your business model. And when I say that, I believe that there's no need to be an expert coach. And I also believe that it's back to, I think we've talked about this off camera, but if you are a bog standard, 3 out of 10 coach, just train 1 out of 10s.
Well, everyone's got to be there. So one thing.
But do you get what I'm saying? So, because a lot of people will almost paralysis by analysis spend all their time becoming the best coach. But ultimately, if you were the best coach, you'd be charging $50,000 a month a class. So it's just not realistic.
But one thing I hate about the industry is you have.
We talked about that in the car, didn't we?
Yeah.
Just outside. Can you imagine if I charge per client $10,000 a month to work with me minimum? Okay, I think I'd be well within my rights to do so because I've worked with the best in the world. But then at the same time, what am I doing to the market? Who becomes available to work with then? So do I focus on being the best videographer in the world, best, person who complements the fitness industry with content? Or do I think, actually, what's a scalable business?
But yours is slightly different. And I only say this because I'm really passionate about being a coach. My job is changing somebody's life, changing somebody's beliefs around their health and fitness. But say if somebody comes to you, right, and they get videos and they get content, yeah, you're changing their life in terms of their business, right? Where it irritates me of people, I don't think you can ever get to be the perfect and an expert coach, but you should always be striving to it. And I think that about most industries, because people are paying you for you to change their life. So what right do you have to say, well, I know enough now, so I'm going to stop learning?
I get that. I agree with that.
So for example, I have a client at the moment who's type 1 diabetic, right? The doctor's told her she either has really bad blood sugars and basically ends up with losing limbs or eyesight, or she's fat for the rest of her life. And I said, rip that script up, because there's loads of people with type 1 diabetes. Phil Graham, the coach I mentioned, he's type 1 diabetic, right? So do you know what I did? I went and got a book that he wrote about it. He was a very successful bodybuilder and a very successful coach while having this autoimmune disease, because that's what type 1 diabetes is, completely different to type 2. So I bought his book and just read and read and read. And I'm going to go and educate myself, because I don't want her to think that just because she has this condition, that she has to just follow the advice that she's given by doctors who don't have time to treat her properly. And I have to be careful how much advice I give her. But we're now working on things which are starting to work and reverse the opinion that she had from that one doctor. So this isn't a case of just helping someone build a business, someone changing their whole life. Like, they're told they have this disease and they either accept being fat or they die earlier.
Do you find that you conflict with doctors?
Sometimes, but you've got to be careful.
Because people can go to a doctor's, can't they? Like, well, quit smoking, do this, do that, and eat a solid diet. But that quite differs to someone who's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
That quite differs. I mean, you look at BMI for a bodybuilder, and a lot of them are classed as obese.
Yeah. So I'm classed as overweight at the moment.
There you have it.
But
so by the NHS,
yeah,
you are obese.
Yeah.
Yet you're in shape. There's not many people who look as good as you.
Thank you.
Well,
so I do conflict with doctors, right? But you've always got to look at, they're only taught what they're taught. And a lot of doctors are underpaid and overworked, so they don't have the time that I have. If somebody comes to me and they're investing in me to help them, they're going to put the time into it, right? A lot of doctors have so many patients, they don't have time to educate them on stuff, right? And they'll tell a lot of people loads of stuff and they just know they're not going to do it. So yes, could doctors be better? Yeah, but am I saying don't listen to your doctor and don't go to the doctors? No, that's absolutely mental. If something medically is wrong with me, I would research it to the end of the earth to find out my own solutions, but I'll still go to a doctor and take their advice, because they're probably more educated on that topic than I am. And as a coach, you can get as educated as possible, but you have to stay in your scope, right? So you can't help everybody. You can't be everybody's saviour. Yes, you should get more educated, but if you're not educated in that topic, you should be confident enough to say to a coach, to say to your client, this is out of my scope. You need to go get a professional. I've done that with loads of clients with mobility problems, clients with other things which I could give them advice, but what if I get it wrong? Because that's not my level of expertise. That's not something that I can touch. So yes, I can go learn about it, but right now I'm going to tell you to go get somebody who's more educated than me and get their advice on it.
You're a man who's invested a lot, obviously, in yourself, in what you do, your skill, your craft, mentors, gurus, if you like, communities. What's your thoughts on all these things? Is there a lot of fake mentors, a lot of fake gurus, a lot of fake communities out there, or should everybody go and try them?
Again, so this is similar to how I see coaching, right? So I always say to clients, you're putting a lot of trust in me, because I charge quite a lot for coaches in my area. I would say for face-to-face PT sessions, I'm probably one of the most expensive in Leeds, and that's not a brag. I just am, right? Because I know what other people charge. So you're putting a lot of trust in just paying me, because you don't really know what you're paying for. You don't know whether I'm the best. I could tell you anything. I think it's the same with mentors. Because it's not a regulated industry, and there's not really like reviews and stuff like there is on most other industries which have been around for ages, and we know how to sort of see who's the best in that. There's going to be a lot of fakers, but as I say, I've worked with some of the best, and even if I haven't got exactly out of them what I wanted, or at the time I wasn't, when I look back on it, I think they've taught me so much. Like, I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't learning from people who are older than me, if it wasn't learning from people who've been there. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have an online business, I would probably still be sat in Pure Gym, because when I first started becoming a PT, I only did it because I wanted to help people, because I knew the journey that I'd been on. I honestly thought that I'd be sat earning 20 to 30 grand for the rest of my life. When I first went and worked with my first proper business mentor, they showed me a life which was different. They worked a lot on my mindset. I grew up in a working class family who had a scarcity around money. They taught me how to get rid of that. They taught me what can happen if I put work in. So I do think that everybody should invest in themselves if possible. And if you can't now because you can't financially afford it, work as hard as you can until you can, whether that's getting a coach for health and fitness or a coach for business, and go learn from the best of the best. Because it might not even be that they give you the best marketing tactic for your business. They might just change your mindset around business and how you run it. And that's what will make you more money than any marketing tactic.
What are some red flags for people when they're looking to hire a coach?
A coach or a mentor?
A coach. A person like yourself. Fitness coach. PT. Red flags.
It's hard, right? Because a lot of people can learn loads of really complicated words and sound smart. So it's hard to say, have a conversation with them and see if they know what they're talking about. I could go and read a biomechanics sort of manual and then tell you all the names of the bones and insertion points and origins of muscles, but then not actually know what that looks like in person. So it's really hard, but I think the red flags are, do they have results? One thing you can do, and I say this to everybody, is ask them if they're happy to put you in contact with some of their clients first. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that if somebody asked me to speak to one of my clients and I spoke to my client and said, can I hand you this person's number, or can you text this person that want to ask about my coaching? I know that that person would then sign up, because most of my business is ran through referrals. Most of the clients I have now have come through friends and family, and it's because I've got them results and I've changed their life. So try to go for people you either know, or if you're looking for one on social media, have a conversation with them first. So I will never take a client on, and we've gone back and forth with this from a business standpoint, where I have a call with every single person before I take any penny off them. I book time out in my diary. Does it bite me in the foot? Yes, because sometimes people are booking a call and don't turn up. I'm sat on my laptop waiting to have a call with them. But I'm never going to take somebody on until I understand what their problem is and know if I can fix it. And then I want them to know, after having a conversation with me and building a rapport, that I'm the person who can help them fix it. I want to teach them on the call and already start coaching them and changing their mindset on there and giving them that mindset shift, because then they know I'm the right person. And it's also people who you connect with, because you can be the best coach in the world, but some people connect with other people better than others. So if their coaching style doesn't fit you, don't be worried about leaving and going and find somebody else. Like, I've had clients leave in the past and go to other coaches, and it's generally worked better for them. Is it a reflection on me being a crap coach? Maybe. But sometimes it's just that you learn better and you build better rapport with other people. And the coaching process is a bit like that. You need to find a coach who works for you. There's loads of really educated coaches out there, and they all deliver their service slightly different. So you might basically get a better result with another coach than somebody else. It doesn't mean they're a bad coach. It just means that you as an individual connect with that person better. So have conversations with coaches, check that they've got results, see if them results, that before picture is where you are now, and is that after photo where you want to be. If so, they probably are the right coach for you.
And this is why we've had these back and forths, right? Like, we've had some good crack back and forth. Like, we're both a bit hot-headed at times, aren't we, I guess? But this is, again, this is why I disagree with that, because I am at the point now in business where I just don't want to have the consultation process. Yep. It's, if you are ready, then I'm your man. But I'm not wasting time on trying to convince people or trying to screen them if you are ready, then that, and I believe that's how coaches should be. If I was a personal trainer or a coach, and this, I want your feedback on this, the way I deal with business now and how I would in your industry is, if you are ready to go and you're pretty much at the point where you're going to snap, or you hire a coach and change your life, I don't want to work with you. That is me personally. I don't want to spend time on trying to go through discovery calls and understand, right, okay, are you the right fit for me? Listen, I don't need to convince you that you need content for your business. If you are at a point where you feel like you're lacking, or you need to kick up the arse, or your content could do with a bit of a shape up, then get in touch and let's do it. Not a case of, is this right for you? What's your goal? Because once you start getting into that, I believe it's more about the psychology of the person then. It's not really about the actual service they're getting from me. And I feel like, because again, it's slightly different what you're doing, because you are tapping into the mindset, the psychology, the psyche of the person. With me, it's a case of, do you want to grow? in your social media business? Do you want to grow your online presence? If you're at that point, then yes. But I'm definitely not going to spend any more time, because I used to do it that way, where I used to spend time on, well, where do you want to be? Do you want to get to this level of followers? Do you want to get... There's no magic bullet, and it's a little bit like coaching. There's no magic bullet to someone just getting that shape. Regardless, they could hire you for a year, and or whoever for a year, and they still may not get that shape if they're not putting the work in. So I almost need people to be at the point where they're like, I just want to look the fucking mustard, and I want to take this by the horns now.
So what I'm about to say could either be a really big ego thing or a really nice human thing, right? So I always see it as a challenge. So if you're not ready yet, but I know I can change your mindset, and I know that by doing that I can change your life, because maybe you've gone through a lot of trauma with your weight, maybe you've gone through a lot of trauma with your body image, and you just don't believe that anything is possible to change that. I want to be the person who does it. One, because I like the ego of somebody coming up to me and saying, you've completely changed my life. And when I had that first call with you, I never thought it was possible. But two, because I also want the person on the other side to look back and think, fuck me, I did it. I never thought I could. I never thought I'd be that person in shape. I never thought I'd be that person who's taken the top off at the beach. But I did. And that means more to me than the money side of it, because I know the mental struggles I went through when I felt like that. When I felt like I was too skinny to wear a t-shirt, to wear a vest. When I had to take drugs and drink loads of alcohol to talk to girls. If somebody said to me then, you've got to do it, like, are you ready to bite the bullet? I would be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But if someone said to me, do you know what? If you put this work in right now and I teach you the exact way how to do it, this is going to be your life in 8 years. I'd be like, wow, let's go. So I always think, as a coach, I want to be the type of coach I needed when I was at my worst. And that would have been somebody to talk through the mindset and the psychology of what it's going to take to do it, and just to show it's possible. Well,
that soundbite right there is the perfect elevator pitch for your business, isn't it? I want to be the coach that I needed now. Final question for you, Robbie. Really enjoyed this chat, mate. I think it's been phenomenal. I think it's packed full of value for a lot of people, and I think it's going to be received very well. As a person who's had their mental battles, their mental struggles, what I want to know exactly, with as much detail as you can, what were the darkest points when you needed help most? What did that feel like?
So I struggle to talk about this, but not because it's upsetting. Because I think sometimes when you're somebody like me who's used your mental battles as a way to progress in life and become successful, like, I think that we all over-exaggerate how bad our worst points are if we want to. So a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, and a lot of people who've got in shape talk about how they was bullied and how they struggled with mental health. And I think that in your own head, you over-exaggerate it loads. Like, I know friends who've spoken about it, and I'm like, that's not the reality that happened. But you over-exaggerate it to use it as a superpower to push on. So it's really hard to talk about it without over-exaggerating it, because sometimes you over-exaggerate and make yourself believe it that way, that it's worse than it was. But just from a standpoint of how much was I drinking and going out is probably the worst part. I mean, I was going out 5 nights most weeks. I was drinking probably a litre of vodka every time I was going out. I would just stay in bed all day after that and then get back up and go back out. I was really scared to talk to people. I never thought about killing myself, but I had loads of thoughts of what's the point? Like, why I'm here. But I never took it as far as suicide, because that just never crossed my mind.
But that in itself there, though, like, I mean, I don't know, quick maths. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing here, but that's 20 litres of vodka a month.
Yeah, sometimes maybe even more.
Do you feel like
that went on for about 3 to 4 years?
You mentioned a bit about, when, taking your top off and stuff like that. Were them dark, or was that just something like, I feel a bit out of shape? Or was it a true...
Oh, no, like, I was so scared about being so skinny that, like, in winter I would wear joggers and a hoodie. I mean, in summer, I would wear joggers and a hoodie when everyone else is in shorts and a vest. Like, I never wore a vest until I was, like, 23, 24, no matter how hot it was, because I didn't want to get my arms out. I didn't want to get my shoulders out because I was skinny with a pot belly and just felt so demasculinated. I didn't feel like a man. I felt like a child. I felt like a little boy around other men. So I just never wanted to do it. Like, I would look in the mirror and think I'd be disgusted at what I'd see. I'd think, like, why are you like this? Like, I used to think that there was something wrong with me because everyone talks about genetics. My dad and my dad's dad they're broad set guys. My mum's family, like, my mum's brothers was rugby players. Like, there was really skinny rugby players, but there was rugby players, right? They played sport the whole time. And I used to think, well, if it's genetics, it can't be genetics because why am I like this? But then my older brother's similar. He's got like similar body build, so it was. But yeah, I just used to look in the mirror and think, I need to change this. I hate everything about it. Like, why can't I just be like everybody else? Why can't I just look like a man?
Well, I think for anybody listening or watching, and I don't often plug coaches and PTs, but for someone who's been through them struggles, actually been through them struggles, have been in the shape that you once were to where you've been. I mean, we'll put them on the screen anyway, but I've saw your photo shoots and stuff like that, and to be in the shape and overcome the things with a voice and all the things you have done. I think if anyone's listening to watching this, because you are accessible online, RBPT is a business that you can definitely rely on. Obviously, out of all the coaches I know, you're definitely one of the most educated people in the world. So I would take that. I would definitely take my hat off you for that. And just the service from me, mate, it's more the mental side of things. Like the coaching, I get it. You know, if I ever worked with you and I needed a coach and you get in shape, I know you could. But it's the mental side of things that I'm more interested in. And I feel like with you, you're not just getting the coaching, you're getting that as well. And I think that's something that I want to definitely see more in fitness, because everyone just wants to flex the biceps, show their back off, show this off. And it's like, yeah, okay, great. I want to look like that. That's brilliant for maybe he's going to O Beach for the summer. But ultimately, is this something that's going to stand the test of time and enable you to actually sit alone with your thoughts and be fucking happy as a person? So clearly, I think that's where you're getting people. So hats off to you, mate, for that.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that.
But thank you so much for coming on, mate. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, a little bit nervous. I mean, my first ever podcast, so if we went around the house a few times, I do apologise, but I hope everyone kept up with everything we've just spoken about.
Appreciate your time, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, bro.
So if you've enjoyed this conversation and you like things like this, make sure you click up there and watch this episode.